The bank took everything in a single afternoon. The plantation dissolved by morning. The war erased the rest. Edmund McIlhenny lost his career, his fortune, his city, his social standing, and very nearly his identity, all before the age of 45. He lost them in the specific sequence that breaks men permanently. First the money, then the status, then the story he told himself about who he was. Most men in 1865 Louisiana, who had suffered this particular combination of catastrophes, did exactly what history expected of them. They drank. They blamed. They faded. Edmund did something different. He found a handful of abandoned pepper seeds on a ruined island, and he built something that would outlast every person who had ever humiliated him. Picture him, 1866, on Avery Island, which is not technically an island, but a salt dome rising out of Louisiana marsh, standing in soil that smells of sulfur and brine, holding seeds that came from somewhere nobody can quite agree on, in a country that has just finished tearing itself in half. He is not a farmer. He has never been a farmer. He is a banker with soft hands and a destroyed balance sheet. This is not a comeback story. This is the story of a man who was methodically stripped of every identity he possessed, and who, in that absolute emptiness, accidentally discovered the only one that would survive him. Tabasco is still here. Edmund McIlhenny made sure of that. If this kind of story pulls you in, the kind that feels almost unbelievable until you realize it isn't, then you'll want to stay close to this channel. We are trying to reach 1,000 subscribers before the end of this month, and the people who subscribe early are the ones who end up shaping what this becomes. And one more thing, don't just watch this silently. Tell me where you're watching from. Drop your city or your country in the comments. I read them, and it's the only way I get to see who's really on the other side of the screen. Chapter 1, The Ascendant. By 1859, Edmund McIlhenny is exactly what New Orleans rewards. He is a banker at Citizens Bank, which means he is a man who controls the distance between other men and their ambitions. He decides who builds and who waits. He moves through the Garden District with the particular ease of someone who has never seriously doubted his own welcome. The city is cotton money and river money and sugar money, and Edmund is the person those fortunes pass through. He is not the wealthiest man in any room, but he is perhaps the most necessary one. He courts Mary Eliza Avery the way successful men court the daughters of even more successful men. Carefully, strategically, with genuine affection that is nonetheless also excellent positioning. Her father, Judge Daniel Dudley Avery, owns Avery Island, the salt dome, the mineral rights, the strange and valuable earth beneath it. The marriage in 1859 is a consolidation of two kinds of power. Edmund brings institutional credibility. The Averys bring land. Then 1861 arrives. The Civil War does not ruin Edmund McIlhenny immediately. It does something more insidious. It makes him temporarily irrelevant while convincing him that relevance is merely paused. The bank struggles. The Confederate currency that replaces real money is a fiction that everyone agrees to perform. Edmund performs it. Most men in his position do. There is no singular moment of collapse, which is what makes it so dangerous. There is instead a slow and perfectly gradual substitution of real value for imagined value, until one morning the imagined value simply stops being imagined and becomes nothing. The bank does not fail dramatically. It fails administratively, which is, for a banker, the specific variety of humiliation that has no available dignity. He does not see it coming. That is the first fact this story orbits. Chapter 2, The Campaign of Humiliation. Union forces occupy New Orleans in 1862, and the McIlhennys do what the Avery wealth makes possible. They flee to the interior. They go to Avery Island, which sits in the marsh like a secret, and for a time the war is something happening to other people. Then 1863 arrives, and Union troops come to Avery Island specifically, because the salt mines beneath it are a strategic resource. The family evacuates to Texas. Edmund McIlhenny, banker, husband, man of standing, becomes a refugee. Read that again. A refugee. He is traveling with his wife's family on his wife's family's land that is now temporarily controlled by people who consider him an enemy. His professional identity is already dissolved. His financial identity is a ledger full of Confederate currency. His geographic identity, the New Orleans of marble lobbies and calculated social choreography, is occupied by a foreign army. What does a man perform when every performance has been canceled? Edmund performs competence. This is his stoic mask, and it is not a choice so much as a structure. He manages the family's movement through Texas with the same methodical attention he once applied to loan applications. He catalogs. He plans. He keeps records of resources in a situation designed to make record-keeping feel absurd. The people around him are grieving openly, which means someone has to be the person who is not grieving openly. He volunteers for this role so thoroughly that it becomes difficult to determine whether there is anything beneath it. The mechanism here is not cruelty applied by a single antagonist. It is something more impersonal and therefore more complete. History itself decided Edmund McIlhenny was now a footnote, and Edmund responded by refusing to accept the categorization while giving no outward indication that the categorization had registered. Chapter 3. The Origin of Resilience. To understand why Edmund absorbs this particular combination of losses without visible collapse, you have to understand where Edmund actually comes from. He is not a Louisiana native. He is Maryland-born 1815, which means he arrived in New Orleans as an adult, as a construction, rather than a product. New Orleans did not make him. He made himself into someone New Orleans would accept. This distinction is everything. Men who are native to their status grieve its loss as an amputation. Men who constructed their status from raw material and deliberate effort experience its loss differently, as a problem to be resolved rather than an identity to be mourned. Edmund had built himself into a New Orleans banker once. The architecture of that construction was still inside him. The city being occupied did not delete the blueprint. There is something else. The specific texture of his early ambition, the movement from Maryland to the financial center of the antebellum South, the deliberate courtship of a family with both land and legacy, suggests a man who was perpetually aware of the distance between where he was and where he intended to be. This awareness is uncomfortable to carry in good times. In catastrophic times, it becomes adaptive. He had always been managing a gap. The gap simply changed dimensions. When the family returns to Avery Island in 1865, the island has been stripped and damaged. The main house still stands. The land is there. The salt is there. And in the disturbed, overgrown gardens near the house, someone, possibly a soldier, possibly a traveler, the record is genuinely unclear, had planted pepper plants of a variety not native to Louisiana. Edmund McIlhenny notices them. This is the moment that retrospectively organizes everything. But here is what matters. He only notices them because he has been trained by 15 years of financial thinking to identify undervalued assets in landscapes other people have written off as losses. The bank taught him to see this. The war created the conditions for him to use it. The irony is architectural. Chapter 4. The Golden Cage and the Catalyst. Avery Island in 1865 is not paradise. It is a post-war salt dome in Louisiana marsh, with a damaged house, depleted resources, and the particular social atmosphere of a prominent Southern family processing the specific grief of having been on the losing side of history. The air is heavy in the way that only Gulf Coast air can be heavy. Not just humidity, but a kind of barometric pressure that seems to exist slightly inside the lungs rather than outside them. Edmund is living on his father-in-law's land, in his father-in-law's house, with his wife's family, with no bank to return to and no New Orleans to return to in the form he had known it. This is the cage. Not iron, never iron. The kind constructed from obligation and gratitude, and the specific powerlessness of a man who is loved but not, in any legible way, essential. He begins experimenting with the peppers. This is the catalyst, and it arrives not as inspiration, but as something closer to desperation, wearing the costume of curiosity. He crushes the peppers. He adds Avery Island salt, of which there is an essentially unlimited supply directly beneath his feet. He ages the mixture in small barrels. He adjusts ratios. He fails. He adjusts again. The first batches are, by any reasonable account, not good. But Edmund has 15 years of banking experience, which means 15 years of evaluating products other people had already decided were finished and finding the specific intervention that made them viable. He does not give up on the sauce. He iterates. By 1868, he has something. He puts it in recycled cologne bottles, the only small glass bottles available, and begins distributing samples to New Orleans grocers, who are themselves rebuilding from nothing. The city that had dissolved him is now his first market. Edmund notices this. He does not comment on it. Chapter 5. The Weaponization of Love. The thing Edmund loves most purely in this period is the process itself. This sounds abstract. It is not. Watch him. He is a man who has lost every external validation structure available to him: the bank, the title, the city, the currency. And he has arrived, through this subtraction, at something that requires none of those structures to function. The pepper mash does not care about his Confederate-era balance sheet. The aging barrels do not require a letter of credit. The sauce either works or it doesn't, and the feedback loop is honest in a way that 19th century finance almost never was. He loves this, the specific, incorruptible honesty of it. And then the market responds. By 1869, the orders arriving from New Orleans grocers are not courtesy orders. They are repeat orders. Edmund begins to understand that he has not created a regional condiment. He has created something that travels, something that, because it is shelf-stable and intensely flavored and unlike anything else available, moves through distribution networks the way genuinely useful things do, by accumulating advocates. He names it Tabasco. He patents the name in 1870. He designs a label. Here is the crack in the wall, and it is not subtle. The man who was a refugee on his father-in-law's island is now a manufacturer with a patent. The man whose financial identity was erased by a war is now building a brand. The man who lost his New Orleans standing is now shipping product back into New Orleans with his name on the bottle. The leverage has inverted. Edmund understands this in the careful, undemonstrative way of people who do not trust good fortune enough to celebrate it prematurely. He files the paperwork. He increases production. He writes to more grocers. Chapter 6. The Social Erasure and the Physiological Toll. The world that had erased Edmund McIlhenny did not immediately welcome him back. This is the part of the story that the triumphant version skips. The late 1860s and early 1870s in Louisiana are not a hospitable environment for new commercial ventures, regardless of their quality. Reconstruction-era New Orleans is a city managing catastrophic poverty, political instability, and the specific social calculus of a society that is being forcibly reorganized around unfamiliar rules. Grocers who take a chance on a new product from an Avery Island pepper farmer are doing Edmund a favor, and everyone involved understands this. The people who had known Edmund as a banker, the ones who had moved through the same Garden District parties and Citizens Bank lobbies, now encounter him as a man who makes hot sauce on his wife's family's land. The social architecture of this reencounter is not kind. It is not loudly unkind. It is the specific, refined Louisiana variety of social diminishment that requires no raised voice. Just the particular quality of a pause before someone asks what Edmund is doing with himself these days. He absorbs this the way he absorbs everything, by continuing. But the physiological record of this period is visible if you look. He is working brutal hours, experimenting, producing, corresponding, distributing, while simultaneously managing the family's overall post-war recovery on an island that requires constant maintenance. By the early 1870s, men who know him from the banking years describe a person who has become physically spare in a way he wasn't before. The softness that came with institutional life is gone. What remains is something more angular. The eyes are careful in the way that eyes become careful when a person has learned that no external environment is reliably safe. He is not broken. This must be stated clearly. But he is changed in the specific way that people change when they have been required to carry weight that was not distributed fairly and chose to carry it anyway. He keeps shipping bottles. The orders keep growing. Chapter 7. The Climax and Epiphany. The Epiphany does not arrive as an announcement. It arrives sometime in the early 1870s. The exact year is not recorded because Edmund is not the type of man who records epiphanies in the form of a shipping manifest. He is reviewing the destinations of his current Tabasco orders, which now extend beyond Louisiana. They are moving into markets he did not solicit. Restaurants and grocers in other states are requesting the product because their customers encountered it somewhere and asked for it by name. By name. He sits with this for a moment. The cologne bottles. The Avery Island salt. The seeds that arrived on the island through circumstances nobody can fully document. The bank that dissolved. The Confederate currency. The Texas refugee years. The marsh and the sulfur smell and the barrels and the failed early batches and the careful adjustments. He does the math. He understands now, building this for longer than he knew. Not the sauce, but the capacity to build the sauce. Every loss had been, without his consent, a course correction. He does not make a speech about this. He updates the manifest. He orders more bottles. He goes to bed. Chapter 8. The Legacy and Final Accounting. Edmund McIlhenny died in 1890. The company he built did not. It passed to his son, then his grandson, then through 6 more generations of McIlhennys who have never sold it, never taken it public, never allowed it to become someone else's property. The Avery Island facility still produces Tabasco. The same island, the same salt, a process that has been refined but never fundamentally abandoned. The bank that employed Edmund McIlhenny is gone. The Confederate currency he held as a curiosity in antique shops. The New Orleans social world that briefly processed him as a footnote has been reorganized beyond recognition by a century and a half of history. Tabasco is in 45 countries. It is on the tables of the White House, the stations of the International Space Station, and the sea rations of multiple generations of American soldiers. Edmund McIlhenny was erased by history once. He made sure it couldn't happen twice. History has a long memory for the wrong people. We're fixing that. Subscribe so Edmund McIlhenny's story stays told. And so you're here when we find the next one.